we'll discuss an important topic, that is electoral bond. Now before we move on to what is exactly this electoral bond and its analysis part, we'll quickly go through certain facts in regard to political funding. Now as per the report that was published by ADR, that is Association for Democratic Reforms, it had pointed out that out of the total funds that was collected by the national as well as regional parties in the 2016 election, about 157.76 crore was collected by cash, around 197.32 crore was being collected by check or as DD, and about 0.03 as in kind or as bank interest. Now this is based on the total funds that was collected in the 2016 election. And ADR also came up with another finding that when you consider the political funding that various political parties got in the last 11 years, about 70% of these funds were from unknown sources. So the political funding in India has more or less remained opaque. And when you relate the political funding to the recent budget, that is budget 2017-18, an entire section was, a particular section was being devoted to this political funding, and the government came up with certain steps to cleanse the political funding. Now first step is in regard to the disclosure limit. So earlier people were able to donate, make donations to the political parties up to rupees 20,000 without disclosing their identity. So the disclosure limit was earlier 20,000. Now the present budget has reduced this and brought it down to 2,000 rupees. Now as per the present budget, it is said that the disclosure limit has been now reduced to 2,000, and any donation that is above this limit of 2,000 has to be done either in the form of a check or in a digital mode. So that is in regard to the first change that was brought about in this budget, that is disclosure limit has been reduced to 2,000. Along with it, the government also introduced what you call it as an electoral bond. Now what is this electoral bond? Now it is a bond that was introduced in budget 2017-18, and it is actually issued by a notified bank for a specified denomination. Now how does this electoral bond work? Now suppose a donor, which can be an individual or an organization or a company, wishes to donate a certain amount to a political party. The donor will approach this notified bank, purchase the electoral bond, and the purchasing or the payment has to be done either in mode of a check or as a digital mode only. That is only as a check or a digital mode. And once the electoral bond is being purchased, it will be given to the political party, and the party will convert this bond into the money through their bank account. Now this is what or how exactly this electoral bond is going to function. Now in regard to the political parties to whom this donation can be made, they need to be registered political parties, and the bank account that they will be using will be the one that they had notified to the election commission. So these are the requirements in regard to the political parties, that is they need to be registered and they need to use the bank account which they have notified to the election commission. And this electoral bond are like bearer bonds. Now what is the special quality of this bearer bond? It maintains the anonymity, that is it will not disclose the identity of the donor. So that is what is bearer bonds is all about. So electoral bond is a bearer bond, and these bonds will have to be redeemed by the political parties within a specified time limit. So these are the main things in regard to the electoral bond. And when you look into it, it will be issued by a notified bank. It will be available only in specified denomination. It can be bought with a check or an electronic mode, and the bearer bonds and these are the bearer bonds, and it will ensure anonymity. So these are in regard to the electoral bond. Now we look into how exactly is this electoral bond going to help. The first thing is that I've already said the disclosure limit has now been reduced to rupees 2,000. So what happens above this? Any person who wishes to donate above this particular rupees 2,000 will have to go for this check or a digital mode, and in that cases the anonymity or the identity of the person will have to be disclosed. But here comes the electoral bond, which can donate above rupees 2,000, and the anonymity will be ensured. So the donor's identity will not be revealed if one makes use of this electoral bond, and that can help in avoiding any kind of harassment by the rival political parties. That is, if you donate for a particular political party and other political parties come to know about it, that can result in harassment when they come to the power. So that kind of chances can be avoided. That is, anonymity of the donor will be maintained, and along with it, since the electoral bond will prompt the donors to take up the banking route, it will ensure that the identity of the donor is being captured, and this can to certain extent address the use of the money power in case of the elections, as well as also check the black money in the economy. So that is in regard to another advantage when one makes use of this electoral bond. Another benefit that has been cited is in regard to reducing the internal corruption in the political parties. Now, before this electoral bond introduction, you had the political parties collecting the cash donations at different levels of the party itself. So that led to the chances of internal corruption happening within the parties itself. Now, with the electoral bond, the redeeming of the electoral bonds will be done only in those bank accounts that has been notified to the election commission. So that can help in addressing the issue of internal corruption in the political parties. So these are the main benefits. That is, first thing is that the anonymity of the donor remains maintained, and then you have the electoral bonds capturing the identity of the donor, which can help in addressing or minimizing the use of black money, and also addressing the issue of money power in elections, and it will also reduce the chances of internal corruption within the political parties. But the introduction of electoral bonds can also lead to certain other effects, or you can say the criticisms. The first thing is that the identity of the donor is captured by the bank. That is fine. But the same is not revealed to the party or the public. Now, in regard to the party, you can say that the ruling party have different mechanisms through which they will be able to know the identity of the donor. And in regard to the donor who is, in regard to a donor who is donating to a particular political party, there are different ways in which the donor can inform the party about the donation. But in effect, what you can say is that it is the public who will be unaware of these particular transactions. So that is the first criticism that has been raised. That is, the identity will not be revealed to the party, which is a criticism, but that can be resolved, but the public will remain unaware of all these transactions. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that no upper limit has been set for the donations. So that can lead to chances of unlimited donations. And third thing is, what makes the electoral bond more problematic is the amendments that had been made to the RPA, that is Representation of People's Act, Income Tax Act, as well as Companies Act. Now, in regard to the Representation of People's Act, there is a section that is 29C. Now, what is this section telling about this act? Now, each political party in its annual contribution report that is filed to the Election Commission will have to include or mention about the various contributions or the donations that they have received that is beyond the disclosure limit. That was, earlier it was 20,000. So beyond the disclosure limit, donations had to be included in the annual contribution report that is filed by the political parties with the Election Commission. But now, with the amendment to the section 29C, what has happened is that the electoral bonds have been exempted from this particular provision, which makes it that the political parties need not show the contributions that they receive through the electoral bond in their annual contribution report that is filed with the Election Commission. So that is the exemption that has been given to the electoral bond. Secondly, the Income Tax Act, the section 13T, has also been amended to bring in this similar changes in the Income Tax Act. And along with it, another very important change is that Companies Act of 2013 was being amended, and two clauses are main concern. The first thing is that it has removed the cap that barred the company earlier from donating more than 7.5% of its average net profit in the 3 preceding financial years. That is, earlier there was a bar of 7.5% of the profit, but now that has been done away with, and along with it, it has also removed the requirement that made it mandatory for the company to disclose in its profit or loss statement the name of the party to which the donation was being done. So, the bar or the amount that can be donated is being removed, and also the disclosure statement has also been removed. So what can it lead to? It can lead to the corporate houses donating an unlimited sum to the political parties without disclosing. So that is in regard to the changes that has been brought about in the Companies Act. So mainly the amendments in regard to the RPA Act, Income Tax Act, as well as the Companies Act of 2013. Now, along with it, you can link it to the amendment that was being made to the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act that was made as a part of the Finance Act of 2016. Now, when you link it, you can the amendment in regard to the FCRA was that the foreign companies that having subsidiary in India can donate to the political parties. So when you link everything, you can say that the nexus between the corporate as well as the politics will only become more deeper as well as more opaque. Now, be the corporate, be it the domestic corporates or even the international corporates. So that is in regard to the electoral bond. Now, I initially mentioned about the disclosure limit being reduced to about 2,000. So what is the criticism in regard to this particular reduction in the rupees is that is earlier it was 20,000, but what happened is that most of the funding used to be received in amounts that is less than rupees 20,000. So reducing it to about 2,000 means it will make it difficult for the political parties, but it is not impossible for the political parties to make use of this loophole. So that is in regard to the various criticisms in regard to the electoral bonds and in regard to the disclosure limit reduction. Okay, so when you look into the developments that has happened recently, the government has said that it will be finalizing the scheme for the electoral bonds and it will be out by around November or December of this year. And second thing is that recently a PIL was being filed by the NGOs, that is Association for Democratic Reforms, as well as the NGO called Common Cause. Now they said that the amendments in the lawmaking provision for the electoral bonds are not only making the political funding more opaque, but also it is preserving the anonymity. So these things were being filed as a part of their PIL, and the Supreme Court has agreed to take up this particular PIL, and also it has sought the response from the sender as well as the Election Commission. So these are the developments in regard to the electoral bond. Now, what is the way forward? So the first is in regard to the formation of the National Electoral Fund. Now, what is this National Electoral Fund? It can be seen as a fund wherein all the donors with respect to the individuals as well as the corporates could make their donations, and this corpus will be divided among the different political parties that is based upon the vote share that they receive in different elections. Now, that is an idea that has been put forward. And but along with this formation of the National Electoral Funds and the division based upon the vote share, we need to bring in also criteria wherein the new parties are also being funded, because that is essential for a country like India which has numerous political parties. So that is in regard to the formation of the National Electoral Fund. Second thing is that once the public funding is ensured, we can ban the private donations, and when the political parties are being funded by the public, then that can also ensure that the auditing is being done, or the annual audit is being conducted by the CAG or a person who is appointed by the CAG. And the government's idea is to bring in a digitization in every single sphere. So if in case of the public funding, what we need to do is that we need to expand the cashless economy concept to the political funding also. That is, even this 2,000 of this disclosure limit can be done away with, and it can be made totally digital. That is, the political funding can be made more digital. That is the next suggestion. And next is that one umbrella legislation. That is a suggestion that can be said is that all the activities in regard to the transactions as well as accounts of the political parties, if they are being formed or brought under a single regulation or a single piece of legislation, that can also help in effectively looking into the political funding. So that's in regard to the one umbrella legislation. And then finally, and most important, is that we need to bring the political parties under the RTI, which the parties have been opposing to over the years. So these are the main things that can be cited in regard to the suggestions that in regard to the political funding. First thing is formation of the National Electoral Fund. And second thing is that you can ban the private donations, and once the public funding is ensured, the auditing can be done by the CAG or a person who is appointed by the CAG. and we need to expand the cashless economy concept even to the political funding and do away even with this disclosure limit of 2000, and then one umbrella legislation can be brought about, and we need to bring the political parties under the ambit of RTI. So these are the various measures through which we can ensure the political funding happens in a transparent manner and it is not made opaque as what has happened in regard to the electoral bond.